Good afternoon, Jeff and Ken. Ken is down in Phoenix. He's in his car. He's going to a meeting tonight. And where are you at, Jeff? You back in Virginia?
And sorry for I wish I could get my audio better here, but I'm taking my wife up to Phoenix. We're in Phoenix going to
Oh, okay.
a big concert, one of the famous Bocelli, I think is how you pronounce the
Oh,
last
okay.
name,
Oh,
Andre.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a
Oh, yeah.
big fan of his Andrea Bocelli.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
he's
for
one.
you. A little. What do you call that? Well, they have a name for it when you go attend the big deals. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Yeah, I missed your audio, Jeff. What'd you say?
I said we're walking in the tall cotton where I
Yeah,
come
there you
from.
go. That's one way to say it. Yeah, yeah. You're mixing with the hoity-toities, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to figure out my audio here. I'm sorry, Don.
No,
Why
that's
I don't know
okay.
if computer or if I can try to get onto a different audio. So, um,
So Ken and I already started talking a little bit, and I figured this might be a constitutional thing that we can get into. Jeff is the Biden pardon. You probably heard about the Biden pardon.
I
I,
have, yes.
I'm guessing you heard about it, right? And I pulled up the part of the Constitution, and now they're talking about. He's talking about. I don't know if it's him or staff or somebody's leaking stuff to the press that he's going to pre-pardon or pardon people that haven't been charged or convicted of anything yet, like Adam Schiff and Liz Cheney and some of those folks. Supposedly that Trump's going to punish when he gets into office, right? He pardoned. This one gal was on TV said he pardoned Hunter Biden because Trump was going to hang him. Now,
Yeah.
if you can imagine how crazy these people are.
Well, you've got a lot of people out there, I've heard on some shows saying how Trump is going to send the military into the blue states,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, I've heard
control,
that.
we just have some of this craziness going on. Um, it's we're in a difficult spot, I think, because, it's kind of like, when January 6th happened, which I do not think it was an attempted coup. I think it was some people got out of hand.
Yeah,
If it was a real coup attempt, it was sure a sad one. They didn't come armed and prepared, Uh,
right.
um, but it gave the opposition, the left wingers, they were just hoping something like that would happen to say, see, we told you.
Oh sure. Then they could interrupt the proceedings.
Yeah, and I am not saying that we have to tread carefully, but I am saying that what we do has to be all within the confines of the Constitution,
Oh yeah,
and
sure.
really preached and taught that, hey, we're doing things by the book, unlike our friends on the left.
Right. Yeah. So here's I'm going to share this with you guys, and I hope maybe you can see it on your phone, Ken. I'm assuming you're using your phone.
Yes.
Um, See if I can bring it up here.
Am I still coming in and out, Don? I'm trying
No, you're
different
good
micro.
now. You're good now.
You're good. Yeah. You're sounding good, Jeff.
Okay. Okay.
Trying to get this shared now. Let's see if I can. Okay, so here's what I'm showing here is just the Constitution itself. This is from Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1. You can probably quote this verbatim, Jeff. It says, and he, talking about the president, and he shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment.
Right.
Now, that to me doesn't sound like he has the power to give preemptive pardons. Just reading it that way. But what do you guys think?
You know, Don, I haven't studied this in probably a decade. I probably should have, but I have gotten into the pardon power. One of the interesting questions is, can a president pardon him or herself? And, you know, because that's never been done.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, there's nothing that it doesn't say that a president cannot.
Right.
And so, you know, there's an argument, and I remember studying that argument about whether a president could or could not. And I did hear arguments on both sides, but you know, my feeling is, and again, I haven't studied this recently, but by the end of that study, I was leaning on the side that a president could, that it hasn't been done before, but, and I was like a 60-40, and I can't remember the specific arguments of that. But I'm coming down on the same thing this way, that I do think a president, and look, I could be completely wrong. There's times when I can stand before you, Don, like with the Mike Pence, you know, thing on January, or, you know, Trump in the bump stocks, or Biden in the unilaterally, you know, getting rid of student debt, or these kind of things, where I'm, you know, 90% sure, but I'm going to give myself a 60% on this, that yes, you could preemptively pardon somebody, even though we may not like it right now. And the reason I'm saying that is because, you know, there's gamesmanship that could go on either side. Let's say it's not a Republican or a Democrat thing, president going in.
Right.
But there could strategy being used to say, hey, let's wait and not, you know, go after so-and-so until after the president's out, because we don't want him to pardon him. And so I am not going on anything. I don't think it's mentioned. Look, I've read the entire Federalist, 85 of the papers, multiple times over. You know, you know, there's a reason that the president does have the powers to pardon. But I do not remember ever reading anything about, you know, can the president do that preemptively?
Yeah, yeah. So there's certainly a question about it, and you remember back in 2020, just before Trump got out of office, every mainstream media outlet wrote about him preemptively pardoning himself, right?
Right.
They were all writing stories that he was going to do that to himself, which of course he never did. So
he never did.
He didn't have anything.
And see, that would have been a double whammy. Could you preemptively pardon somebody? Could that somebody be yourself?
Yeah, well, and think about that. Think about a preemptive pardon. Say you were a president. Well, I'm just saying, a circumstance where someone in your family was going to go rob a bank. So you preemptively pardon him. They go rob the bank anyway. They get the money.
Well, you can't do that. Now that you can't, you know, that's like an ex post facto law.
Yeah.
You cannot pardon somebody for something that is in the future. You know, that's pretty clear.
Right. But if they haven't been charged with a crime, but they would be charged with a crime, isn't that covering the future?
Well, not necessarily, because it's done for acts in the past. And again, this is something I'll spend some time on that this week. Yeah. I can't, you know, look, I don't like pundits, and I criticize when people speak confidently about things they don't know. And this is something I
understand.
You know, my opinion, but I have studied this in the past. But I think it's an area we have not tread before. I'm not saying pundits haven't given their opinions,
right,
and constitute scholars, but quite frankly, you know, I think what would happen in the future if presidents are starting to get hammered left and right, is every president would pardon themselves for the things that they, just kind of, that's just what happens.
Yeah. When first day in office.
Well, the last day in office,
The last.
that they're getting out,
Yeah.
that they but that's an interesting thing, and I'm going to look into that this a little bit more.
Okay, we'll
But
talk
it's-
about it more. If everybody's going to be around next week, we'll talk about it more. I see Paul's joined us with his flashing Christmas tree. You look like you're in the Christmas spirit, Paul.
Yeah, we're getting there.
All right.
Yeah, what so you guys are just discussing this preemptive pardon thing reminds me of the old Catholic Church and their indulgences. You could go and buy some indulgences for crimes or sins you were going to commit in the future. You just you paid for them up in front, and then you go sin all you wanted to, and you were indulged and exempt from terrible sinful punishment.
There you go.
So that's what it looks like to me. He's just taking a page out of the old Catholic prayer book there.
Yeah. What do you think, Ken?
Well, the way Jeff responded to one of your questions makes me want to ask you, Don, when you say a preemptive pardon, you were, I think, asking about future acts, weren't you?
Well, I was thinking that someone's going to be pardoned before they're actually charged with a crime they've already committed.
Right, things they've done in the past, but not charged
Like
with.
Liz,
Haven't been charged with. Okay.
yeah, like Liz Cheney and for deleting all of the committee's information, right? After that committee, the J6 committee, her and her cronies went and deleted all, which was against the law. She could be charged with that, but a preemptive pardon would relieve her of that charge. And Dinesh D'Souza, he came out and said, well, he said these people should be charged anyway, even if they get a preemptive pardon, and let go into the courts and let it go, let it see what happens. So he doesn't believe that you can preemptively pardon people.
Comey kind of preemptively pardoned Hillary for her Espionage Act
Yeah.
crimes.
Well, he'll have a whole list put together. I mean, there's a lot there, right? Adam Schiff and his impeachment hoax.
Yeah.
And, who else?
That's why they're so hard over on keeping him out of office, because there's a lot of skeletons and a lot of closets that are going to be opened up.
Yeah.
Well, that's one reason I think it's not just Trump that we have to worry about his safety. I don't know how much you guys know about Kash Patel, who was just nominated for FBI director, and I am 100% on board with him because he is somebody that is interested in the truth, as so far as I can tell.
Yeah.
He also has the knowledge of, who did what to whom, when and where, what was legal, how it was hit. And, I got to be honest, I fear not just for Trump's safety, but, these are some very serious allegations. And I think they're true, by the way.
Yeah.
Kash Patel's written a book on it. He's spoken on these things. And when he talks about the deep state, this is some very serious things that really expose how corrupt our federal government has become. And it's scary. I think it's really scary, and things need to happen. So I do hope that he and the other nominees somehow have security and are able to be protected through this.
Haven't there been, I heard there'd been threats against a lot of his nominees already.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, bomb threats, things
Bomb
of that
threats,
nature.
and some of them actually been swatted.
Yeah.
Which means somebody called something in that got the SWAT team over to their place, and when the SWAT team comes, it's they have to believe there's a serious problem, so they don't just come and tap on the door, right?
Right. People have been killed in swatting incidents.
Yeah, they've done that to Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia several times, 4 or 5 times. Her family home's been swatted.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's bad stuff. But so go ahead, Ken. More on preemptive pardon.
Yeah.
Just common sense wise, I think the whole term pardon refers to an act that has been committed and known in the past, and it's a pardon after the fact. I am not a fan. Now, maybe it can be legally justified, as Jeff was talking about, but I am not a fan of preemptive pardons for any and all acts. I think pardons need to be used very limitedly, and I think it deteriorates the confidence American people have in their government when pardons are used, and especially if they're overused.
Yeah, understand. Yeah, you're right. And when you were as a Secretary of State, you would have been acting governor sometimes. Was anything ever brought to you or about a pardon, or did Governor
No.
Brewer pardon anybody?
Not to my knowledge. Yes, I was acting governor for, on probably, during the 6 years that I was, 2 of the 6 years that I was Secretary of State, I had been appointed. So I was not in line to be the governor, but I did serve as the acting governor when she was out of state and stuff like that. But even that has been diminished now that with communication the way we have, even when she went out of state, she usually didn't want to transfer her gubernatorial authority. But there were a couple times that she did, and but nothing related to a pardon ever came to my level.
Yeah. Would she, if she was going to pardon anybody at the time, would she bring you in for advice?
No.
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 She
just the way that she acted, during those 6 years. No, it would have required my affixing of the state seal to an official act of hers to pardon somebody. And every time she did act, the Secretary's office was the keeper of the seal, and we kind of confirmed those acts by affixing the state seal. But she usually didn't consult me before she did things. She told me going in when she appointed me that that's kind of what she wanted to do, but it didn't turn out to be quite that case.
And I think, Ken, I think if Biden were to, let's say he's going to pardon Adam Schiff, I think he's going to have to be specific as to what he's pardoning him instead of a blanket pardon. I think you're going to get in real big trouble if you don't specify and abuse those. And I would almost, I almost foresee if presidents start to abuse the pardon power, some people could say it was abused a little bit under Obama, and I think Biden's going to abuse it. He already has with his son.
Well, Clinton abused
but if we
it.
start, a constitutional amendment may have to be pushed, and I think. I think the states and I think Congress would probably be for that because they need to rein in power.
Yeah.
But
I know Clinton
isn't clear.
Yeah, Clinton
on everything. That's why we have the 12th, the 20th, and the 25th Amendments. All those have to do with presidential election and succession and how we maintain the president. And that it took 3 amendments. 12th, 20th, and 25th. And we still have issues figuring this stuff out.
Yeah, I understand.
It's something legally that defines a pardon as a forgiveness of a crime, not a forgiveness of all crimes.
Well,
Wouldn't there be something in that? I'm not an attorney. I don't even play one on TV, but it just seems to me that there should be some document that says, like Black's Law Dictionary, or go back to Blackstone, or somewhere in there. I'm sure there were kingly pardons. I can't even think of the word. Royal pardons. issued back in the early days of the knights of old and all that kind of stuff. And a king was a king, and he could say, I pardon Sir Lancelot from whatever he did with Guinevere or whatever, and but so somewhere there should be a writing that says what a pardon is and what it can be used for.
Yeah.
Well, there's precedent. There's precedent to that. I mean, look at Lincoln. Lincoln gave a lot of pardons, for instance, for troops, Union soldiers that were on the picket line and fell asleep and were condemned to death. He did a lot of that. But guess what? It was a very specific pardon. Like, we haven't pardoned him for any future falling asleeps. But this is a 18-year-old boy who's been marching for 3 days with no food, and there's a reason he fell asleep, and he doesn't deserve a shot in front of everybody else. And so Lincoln would use that power, but it was a very specific pardon given. So usually these pardons are very specific in what their nature is and the amount of time. It is not like Hunter Biden, where it goes back 10 years and preaches a blanket pardon. I mean, that is not common, and that could be called an abuse of power.
I heard I heard there's also an attorney in the DOJ that handles and reviews pardons, and that this specific one did not go through the Department of Justice.
Right, because they didn't want the feedback.
Oh, yeah,
because the
sure
would have been by precedent. You've got to have, this is what precedent has shown. But lately, we've seen the Democrats, especially the contingency of the Democratic Party, not worry about precedents or, doing things that haven't been done heretofore. They're kind of steamrolling over that.
So I haven't seen the pardon. I don't even know if it's been made public, but I wonder if does it actually list all of Hunter Biden's crimes, or does it just list his tax evasion and the gun charge?
I haven't seen it either, Don, but I thought go ahead, Ken.
I don't know. I haven't seen it either.
Well, I've seen something that looked like what I thought was it, and it just said basically all crimes committed since December 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024, for crimes that were committed, crimes that he was involved in, or any crimes in which he played a part. And so it's just three tranches of situations that he's been pardoned for. What he could have done and what he was part of or was a part of. And the interesting thing is that I think they're issuing it now to prevent him from having to testify against the big guy in all this money laundering stuff.
Yeah.
But they may have, I've read an article this morning that said they may have wrapped themselves around their own axle because now that he's been pardoned,
right, he can't plead the Fifth.
Claim the Fifth Amendment,
right,
as a protection, because he can't, and so he's going to have to tell the truth or lie, and if he lies, that's not covered by the pardon.
Yeah.
And
that's a new crime.
And so he put himself in jail.
Exactly. Well, also, I think it's important to bring up that this is only a pardon from federal crimes, and I do not understand.
California was a state tax, wasn't it? Or was that
right?
What was he in California and committed a federal tax crime? I thought it was a state tax thing.
Well, but look, prostitution in almost every state is illegal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course.
There are drug laws against a lot of these drugs. There's in some states pornography laws that can be broken. I mean, there's a lot of that aren't just state issues. So I'm not sure that gets him off the hook everywhere. And he may go to that defense if he's asked to testify. To be honest, because we say that's right, but he could go before. I mean, there's slick lawyers out there that will say, look, you can still plead the Fifth because they can come and get you for where that crime occurred.
Yeah.
I don't know that, but They're going to come up with an excuse to not have him testify.
There's a news story out that when he was in California for this tax evasion case or the trial, he stayed in a friend's house there, and he owes that friend $300,000 in rent that he's never paid.
Oh boy.
And that guy is up in arms now. So there's a new crime.
Wow.
What a guy, huh?
Yep. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. So actually, Biden has set a real precedent with this pardon. I mean, I don't think any president has ever written a pardon for somebody for 10 years. Right. That's got to be a precedent. Has to be.
It's got to be a precedent. I am not aware of anything like that ever.
It has to be. So I want to ask you guys about, and I don't know, this is just kind of a current events thing. Did you hear? You've all heard about the CEO that got murdered in Manhattan, the CEO of United Healthcare. And I don't know if you guys got to see the video or not.
I've not seen it.
I did.
Have you watched the video, Jeff or Paul? Paul, you've seen it.
Yeah.
Heard a description of
It's a hit. I mean, it's not. He wasn't hit by a stray bullet. He was hit 3 times by well-aimed bullets.
Yeah.
It was a little bit more in the conversation. This was on X. There were a lot of comments that there was a professional hit, but his gun kept jamming.
Right.
And other people were saying no, they were shooting. He was shooting subsonic ammunition through a silencer to keep the sound down, which was something you do. And sometimes the energy in a subsonic bullet isn't enough to cycle the gun and reload the next round.
You have to re-rack it.
Yeah, so you'd have to re-rack it. Or he may have deliberately, and although this has been kind of debunked, he may have been deliberately not allowing it to recycle so that he could remove the cartridges himself and not have cartridges lying around with his fingerprints or any other kind of identifying marks. But that's kind of debunked because they found 3 cartridges with words like depose and I forget what the other ones were, but they were legal terms found at the scene. So there's a little conflict as to whether the manual reloading of the gun was deliberate or accidental or something like that. So, but it was what you might call a clean hit.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy just walked up behind him and shot him 3 times or so in the back.
Yeah. Well, he shot him in the leg, and then he re-racked the gun, and then he shot him twice more and killed him.
I'm looking at the video. I just don't see how he shot him in the leg the first time, the way he was aiming, because he looked like he was aiming right at the middle of the back. And
yeah. Well, the victim kind of jerked off to his right and lost his balance a little bit. And there was a lady standing there when he took the first shot, and she ran right away. And he didn't even, the shooter didn't even glance at her, so she's pretty lucky.
He had a target.
Yeah, and he used a 9mm too, which is pretty unusual. So,
not necessarily. That's a man killer.
Yeah.
No.
So another part of this story I heard is that this CEO was under DOJ investigation for insider trading. He had sold a bunch of stock for $81 million the day before the DOJ announced the legal action against him.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't know who else was involved with that, but
I have not heard that.
yeah. And you wonder if someone else involved with that. There are probably other people that did the same thing, and I've actually seen an article where Pelosi's name came up, but he would.
What's the situation with the words on the bullets, the casings, referring to a book of some sort that is critical of public insurance, private insurance companies, and something like that? Something and depose or.
Yeah, I remember the word depose, but I don't remember the other 2 words. But they were like legal terms. And there was some speculation in this X article thread about it being a disgruntled insured who was turned down, or was this is speculation, but was this somebody, just an individual that was upset with the insurance company because they turned down his wife's cancer treatment and she died, or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
those scenarios.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, they'd probably like it to be that simple of thing rather than a big conspiracy. So we'll see, I guess. We'll find out anyway. So did you all hear about the earthquake in California today?
Yeah.
Right on the border of California and Oregon. And
Yeah.
Yeah, 7.3, I guess, was what I
Oh
heard.
my God, I didn't hear. I've been on the road, so.
Yeah.
Oh.
but there's no death or damage I'm hearing, so pretty fortunate there.
Yeah, that's good. 7.3 is pretty.
Yeah, it's a
Pretty
big
good.
earthquake. It was offshore, some distance offshore.
Oh, that's
And it
why
was-
they're worried about a tsunami then.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
They issued the tsunami warning, but it never really materialized, and that's
Okay.
expired now.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that's good. The earthquake up in Alaska in the 60s was 8.8
My goodness.
That was a biggie.
and did a lot of damage. I actually when I got stationed up there, I had a guy I worked with that was living there when it happened. He was going out to his car in his carport, and he couldn't stand up. It was throwing him all over the carport. It was bouncing the car, and he was tumbling around inside this carport with the car. Yeah, you said it was really it was
Very
terrible.
scary.
Yeah, and they put
Now, is my understanding correct that the way the Richter scale works, that
Yeah.
it's
1 point is
uh,
100 times more.
I thought it was 10.
No, it's 100.
Oh, is it 100? I thought it
Oh,
was
yeah.
10 too.
Yeah.
So a 2, I thought a 2 was 10 times more than a 1. A 3 is 10 times more than a 2.
I
So
think
it's kind of an exponential expansion, but I
it's
didn't think it was
absolute-
100
yeah,
times.
It's absolutely exponential. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it's 100. I'll check on that. So, yeah, it's quite a difference between Richter points. So, of course, you get from an 8, or you get from a 6 to an 8, right? That's 10 and 10. That's 100. So maybe that's why I'm being confused by it.
Yeah, 2 Richter points would be a factor of 100
Yeah.
because you do times 10 and then times 10 again. But
Yeah.
I've always somewhere years ago, I thought I was told that the Richter scale, the magnification is any number is 10 times more than the previous number, and then it's a factor of 10. But
Yeah. So do they think this is part of the San Andreas fault, or have any of you guys heard?
not heard. Have not heard.
Yeah, you'd think there'd be ramifications there if it was. I didn't know if it went up that far past San Francisco.
Well, you got the whole ring of fire.
Yeah.
Runs
I heard
up.
they felt it in San Francisco and Oakland.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it is then. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Okay. So the last thing I wanted to mention was, and we'll wrap it up here pretty soon because I know Ken's got a meeting to go to, and are you going to your program tonight, Jeff? We lost Jeff for a minute. We wanted to, I would like us to talk about, and Ken and I talked a little bit before we got started about the Senate rules and how the Senate leader came about. He pointed out how the Arizona Senate is organized. Got you back, Jeff. How the Arizona Senate is organized when it first opens up for the new year, and the research I did, I sent you guys the article, but it looks like the Senate leader term came about around 1913 when they first started referring to a Senate leader, which started on the Democrat side. And I don't know if that was in the rules or not. And then from there, it kind of caught on with both parties up into the 20s and 30s, where they actually appointed in the beginning of the session as a Senate leader. Up until that time, it was just a committee leader. They were committee leaders. So, so I don't know if you guys got a chance to research that anymore, or look at that, or think about it, or Who cares?
No,
I don't want to talk about it.
No, I think it's good to know, Don. Yeah.
Yeah, it apparently before 1913, it was just they referred to them as the committee leaders, and there was no.
That occurs right at the 17th Amendment, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah. So they and we have, of course, we have a new Senate leader, John Thune. So, have you guys heard any other of the senators? Now, I heard the problem with that Pete Hegseth is facing in the Republican side is Joni Ernst. I don't know if you guys heard that or not.
Kowski on the outs with him.
She wants to be the Secretary of Defense, and apparently he met with her today, and he said the meeting went well. And he's talking to Trump every morning, and Trump's said he's got his back 100%. Now, I think the story with DeSantis is false. Some of the Florida...
That would be good.
Yeah, some of the Florida news outlets have picked that up a little bit. That was a story in the Wall Street Journal, but I don't think it has any legs. I don't think that's happened. So Trump talks to him every morning and tells him, and Hegseth says that, he says, keep fighting, you got to fight this one out. Now, Bongino says this is the hill we got to die on, because if they get rid of Hegseth, they'll get rid of JFK Jr., then they'll get rid of what's her name from Hawaii? She'll be on this.
Gabbard.
Gabbard, Tulsi Gabbard. We'll lose the whole battle. So we got to win this one. They gave up on Matt Gaetz, but they can't give up on Pete Hegseth. So
I agree with that.
Led me to believe that Matt was a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
Matt Gaetz. That they sent him out there to draw the rhinos out of the woods and see who was going to be shooting the arrows.
Yeah, and it worked, right?
Well, it's pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it worked. I mean, you always have the typical ones, like you have what's her name from Alaska, Murkowski,
yeah,
right.
Collins, and
Susan Collins. You always suspect, and Romney. Romney's not going to be in it now. Romney's done. Which, Ken, you probably know that. He retired, right? He didn't run again.
Yes,
they have
correct.
A new senator from Utah, which I didn't know. I didn't realize Romney had retired. So.
Yes. Trying to think of the new guy's name, but I can't.
Was it Price? No?
That doesn't sound right.
Yeah. I guess he was a state representative or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever meet Ken Ivory from Utah?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I knew Ken Ivory a little bit. The Senate president of Utah, when I was the Senate president in Arizona, was a guy named Ballantyne, and I got to know him pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and then the Speaker of the House at that time, who I've kind of reconnected with, Marty, what's his last name? Can't think of it. So yeah, I knew some of the Utah senators.
Yeah. Ken Ivory he's the guy.
Marty Stevens was the Speaker of the House, and met Greg Bell. He was the lieutenant governor for a while when I was the Secretary of State. So yeah.
Ken Ivory was the House of Representatives, and he started the American Lands Council, which was an effort to get back federal land from the feds west of the Mississippi River. And, they did finally file a big lawsuit this year. So they're in the weeds now about getting their land back from the feds. So sure like to see
I think that is great.
It's fabulous.
With the coalition of Western states and the whole group. And, there's a lot of a constitutional discussion about new states not coming in as colonies, and that they're on the same par as all the other states. And these states that are 80% owned by the federal government certainly are not on par with the other states east of the Mississippi. There's an equal footing clause and all these things that we could do a whole podcast just on that, because it is really and most people don't understand it or know it, but
Yeah.
the
Well, you're
Western
losing all
state-
that. You're losing all that tax money as a state,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That federal land doesn't get you any tax money. So, and they don't do a very good job taking care of it. On top of that, right?
Well, there's a federal law, the PILT, payment in lieu of taxes, that the feds agreed decades ago to kind of make up for that, but I don't think they've ever made the payments that they were supposed to. So,
They're not,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
not following their own rules, right?
Yeah.
You're shaking my faith in the government.
Yeah, if that's possible, Paul.
but the other, you
I
have
don't
to
know. I
remember-
don't know if it's possible to shake our faith anymore in the government.
No,
We have to remember that the presidents have set a precedent to unilaterally set aside some of that federal land as parks.
Yeah.
And, so it could be taken at any point in
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And of course, I do think that's unconstitutional.
Don't you remember under Obama all the land that they were taking away? They were going crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Republican presidents have done it as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Teddy Roosevelt kind of set the standard there.
Yeah.
And look, we need it. We need these federal parks, but there's got to be a more Republican form of way of doing it rather than unilateral authoritarian.
And we're talking about across the West. We're talking about millions of acres.
oh yeah,
I mean, like 85% of Nevada is federal land.
Right.
I don't know how much of Utah. Utah's probably at least 50%, isn't it?
I
Ken?
think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
And
Well, then, and look, I mean, you know how much that's been abused. Bureau of Land Management,
yeah.
the old BLM, not the new BLM, but when it was founded, was supposed to be a helpmeet to the ranchers.
Right.
And, I followed very closely the whole Bundy issue years ago.
Right.
And in Clark County at the BLM office, there were signs up that said no moo by 92. This is years ago. So, believe it or not, a federal agency set up to help the ranchers. All of a sudden, what does it want to do? Get rid of all of the ranchers. They want to revoke all the leases on the land. And they were supposed to, in the Dust Bowl era, help out the ranchers mitigate the water rights and help ranchers not to get all up in arms and figure out how to have it for everybody. And so these things kind of go astray, and we've seen how that happens.
Oh yeah. And Ken, you remember when you spoke? You came down and spoke in Sarita at our constitutional convention. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, Ken came down and presented. We had a video. Ken Ivory sent us a video. He couldn't make it, but he sent us a video and talked about the American Lands Council and did a great job. So I'd sure like to see other states take up the mantle with Utah and, sign up and get that done, because I think it's important. If you look at the map, I mean, there's virtually no federal land in Florida that I know of, other than the Air Force bases, the military bases.
which are listed in the Constitution in a sense.
You're right. And you look at all the South, the East, and the Midwest, and it's really true. I mean, it's just all void of federal land. And then you look out west, and it's just incredible.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I read an article the other day that there's a strip of land along the Nevada border, about 1 million plus acres, that there was a federal act some years ago, and that land was never claimed by anybody, and so it's unowned, it's unclaimed land, and it includes kind of the Bundy Ranch area, the Virgin River, along that area. I'd have to go look it up again, but anyway, the question was, the federal government gave it to the state of Utah, and they never accepted it, or Nevada, and they never accepted it, so it's sitting there unowned effectively, and the federal government's been operating on it, but they really don't have title to it. And so that's something we might be interested in discussing. I might look that up and see if I can get some more information on it.
Yeah.
Thing I want to talk about, and I know we're down to the end of the clock here, but is the Brunson trial and the Brunson case. that one looks like it's really could be a stirrer, if you will, if they get the Supreme Court to agree with their suit, because it's gonna create a real constitutional crisis, because they've named 100+ congressmen who violated their oath by not taking the emphasis. It was right when J6 happened.
Right.
Supposed to complain about irregularities in the election. J6 happened, and none of them ever did come up and file their irregularity concerns, and so the election just went through. And the Brunson brothers are running that cow down to see if they can get the Supreme Court to agree with their suit and get all those people thrown out of Congress, including the president and the vice president.
There you go.
Current alleged president and vice president. So,
Well, that'd be a pretty big case, wouldn't it?
it's a big case. It's already been bounced through two circuits, and it's now headed for the Supreme Court. And I think they've granted them certiorari.
Wow. Okay, future discussions. So, well, it's good to see all you guys. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving.
Sure did.
And your families are safe, and we're just, Patty and I are just counting the days till January 20th. So
That's right.
not that there's any importance in that date, right?
Did you see the Festival of Resistance?
Yeah.
The information
Yeah.
Festival of
Yeah, I
Resistance?
did. Yeah.
Big doings on the 18th of January.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep your powder dry.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, there's going to be all kinds of stuff flying around, but it's great to have you guys. I thank Ken and Jeff for taking the time from your schedule and your traveling to jump in and talk about these things. It's great, and thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell and get your alerts on when we're going to put a show up. I'll have this up on the YouTube and Rumble tomorrow night. We still haven't been kicked off YouTube, so we're okay. I have to tell you guys a little story before I leave. I put a comment on YouTube. Somebody was talking about one of these cases, and I don't know which one it was, but my comment was "get a rope." Okay. You know, the old term of in the days when people would steal horses, the cowboys, right?
Yeah.
Somebody'd yell, "Get a rope," and I mean, that was a hanging offense at that time, and that's what they did, right? Well, YouTube sent me a letter about that comment and asked me not to commit suicide.
Wow.
Honest to God, their algorithm thought I was going to commit suicide.
I'm glad you listened to their letter. Thank you, Don.
So I wrote them and said, no, I'm not thinking about suicide, and I explained what's behind "get a rope." But I went ahead and deleted the comment just to take away the friction, because it wasn't a big deal to me. But yeah, I got a whole real long letter telling me to get help and on and on and on. I couldn't believe it.
Well, you remember the old hot salsa commercial?
Yeah, Pace.
Pace. This is made in New York City. I mean,
New York City, get a rope.
Yeah, there you go. I forgot about that. Yeah, they said the same thing, right? Get a rope. That's funny. Yeah. Okay, guys, God bless you all.
All right.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
And we will talk to you later.
Have a nice weekend. All righty.
You too. Have a great weekend. See you next week.